One case where Wall Street may be slightly ahead of investors is on Accenture.
We found it, and we want to talk to you all about what Accenture is going to do to potentially fuel the AI boom.
Let's talk earnings and favorite pastime.
So let me just say, earnings
Wall Street
is
2.5x
because their compensation goes up.
Wall Street's wrong again.
So Accenture, one of the biggest professional services firms in the world, and the only real big one that you can buy stock in, has seen a big collapse in its price since February, March, mostly because of DOGE and because of cuts in Department of Energy and cuts everywhere. They've lost a lot of contracts, Accenture has. So the stock price has fallen quite a bit. People are saying maybe it's on its heels, and yet it's showing some sign of recovery. What is the recovery coming from, and could it stick? And I think there's a lot of reason to say there is. Right, so Accenture is training 500,000 staffers for what? For AI consulting work. So just to get to this point, there is no AI industry, right? Every company has to become an AI company or that company is dead. The same thing happened in the 1990s. People said, oh, there's this internet strategy and there are internet stocks, right? And you're like, no, wait a second. If every company doesn't have a .com, doesn't have an internet and an intranet, making things more efficient and more productive and more effective, that company's dead. Every company, right, has to have some level. Even the smallest mom and pop store has to have some level of internet presence. So as companies start moving towards AI, just like they move towards internet, they're going to need consultants to help them do it. Now, I'm not saying NVIDIA is running out and saying, I need Accenture to help us build what we're saying. We're talking about all the old line industrial companies, right? All the paper companies, materials companies, and construction, whatever, they're going to say, wait a second, how do we move to AI? We don't have those kinds of people in-house. We don't have natural software engineers in-house. And so what do? They turn to the Deloittes, the PwCs, and Accenture. Now, years ago,
Joel,
and I'm talking, yes.
To your point, right, NVIDIA doesn't need Accenture, but actually, right, I mean, we just saw the news. NVIDIA signed a deal with Accenture to basically tell all of those old mainline companies, to your point, paper companies and everything else, if you do want AI, go to Accenture. So for what it's worth, they are telling everybody to go to Accenture.
That's a better way of saying need. That's what NVIDIA wants Accenture to do, to go install NVIDIA everywhere. What I meant was, right, is that NVIDIA is not turning to Accenture and saying, tell us how to run our business. NVIDIA is going to Accenture and saying, tell everyone else how to run their business and tell them they need NVIDIA chips to do it, right? So SAP did the same thing. Oracle did the same thing years ago. And the big, at the time, 6, and even before that, the big 8 consulting and accounting firms right, just generated tremendous revenue on that. And what we're talking about was for every dollar of what it used to be like the ERP systems, the big technology backbone interfaces that companies were realizing they needed, and they went to an Accenture, the billable rate, the billable hours, the total dollars of revenue from the consulting firm was 6 to 8 times the cost of the software they're implementing. So for every $1 million of SAP software that gets installed at these big companies, there would be as much as $7 to $8 million of consulting work at the consulting firms doing it. Now, I was at a part of PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is, again, one of the biggest, not publicly listed, so you can't buy into it. But PwC, way back in the early and late 1990s, right? I was at a division called Diamond, and that was there to help companies like Square D, right? Morgan Stanley, like regular companies, not quote unquote internet firms, learn how to use and get the most out of the internet. You learn how to use the most out of digital strategies, as they used to call it back then. Well, AI is going to be a bigger impact. Back then you even had some wiggle room around how soon do we have to adopt the internet? You had a few years. I don't think you have it on AI. You will get destroyed by our competition as a company if you haven't moved to AI, no matter what industry they're in, no matter what. And Accenture is saying, we're going to be there to get all those billable hours and helping companies become AI enabled. Well, that's going to be good for Accenture. And we think the market doesn't yet realize that this could easily offset the loss in returns, the loss of revenue from losing some of those Fed contracts. Now, this is the as-reported return on assets. It says, all right, it's a respectable 12%. That's U.S. corporate average. In reality, uniform accounting would show that Accenture's returns are actually off the charts. They're fantastic. All right, Accenture's returns are not just higher by like 3 or 4 times, but rising. right? And this reflects how the company's valuation is. I mean, how do you get to a valuation of $200 billion if you have ROAs that are only U.S. corporate average? So, no, the ROAs are off the charts. They're rising. Now, if we look at Wall Street's forecast, pro forma forecast, the Wall Street analysts believe that Accenture is going to improve, that they're not going to get taken as big a hit from the Fed, or at least Fed cuts are not going to hurt Accenture as much as the offset of moving to AI. And we think Wall Street realizes this. And that's why the returns are expected to increase. And yet the stock market's saying, nah, we believe that's going to be short-lived. They don't recognize this yet. Investors, the embedded expectations of Accenture, those white bars, say investors are giving credit for the business that Accenture has today, but they're not giving it credit for what Wall Street's seeing, which is an improvement, those lighter blue bars, and what we're talking about today, which is this AI revolution that's going to require a lot of consultants at these big firms to help them become AI enabled in all the right ways. And we think Accenture is doing the right thing, moving in that direction.
And right, and to your point, Joel, I mean, the big story here, everybody, is the number 6, right? Joel, to your point, 6x. If you're going to spend a certain amount of money on NVIDIA chips or software, you're probably going to spend 6x that is what we saw from ERP land when you get these consulting companies to implement. And so you think about the ROA potential opportunity and the growth opportunity of that for Accenture, it's off the charts, but it's actually bigger, everybody. When, Joel, you talked about the idea of, I think it's like 500,000 Accenture employees that they're talking about training to do AI. Accenture, McKinsey, BCG, all these people aren't just trying, all these companies, these consultants aren't just trying to train others to use AI, everybody. They're using AI internally, right? McKinsey's got, I think it's called Lily. BCG's got Dexter, which are literally AI tools that they're having their consultants use to build decks, to basically extract insights from the 50 plus years of analysis that they've got for other companies to build that institutional knowledge. And Joel, I mean, I would bet that that's going to see, as Accenture unlocks all that value, that's going to see a lot of potential for further ROA expansion, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, with AI empowering each, I mean, this is a very expensive people-driven business when you think of how much they have to pay people to do what they're doing. When you can suddenly get 2, 3, 4 times productivity out of each person, which is the kind of benefits you are seeing from AI, those levels of productivity, why wouldn't the return on assets go up just from the efficiencies alone, let alone from the fact that the revenues of this company should increase because they're going to help enable lots and lots of other firms in AI as well.
Exactly. Well, everybody, that's this episode of Altimetry Authority. You like it, you enjoy it, hit the like and subscribe button and give us a comment. Thanks so much, everybody.